Hey guys, it's your friend Ryan from Ryan KRB Gaming, and today we'll be looking at a different ship. Today we'll be looking at the RMS Mauretania. So let's get into this video, and be sure to check out for these things. 1. Be sure to listen keenly to these facts. They may help you one day in a test. So let's get into this video. So today we'll be looking at this ship, the Mauretania. She was built by Wingham Richardson and Swan Hunter for the British Cunard Line and was designed by Leonard Pesquet. She and Lusitania were designed by the Cunard naval architect, who I've just said, Leonard Pesquet, with Swan Hunter and John Brown working from plans for an ocean greyhound with a stipulated service speed of 24 knots in moderate weather as per the terms of a mail subsidy contract. Pesquet originally configuration for the ships in 1902 was a 3-funnel design, but you can see in this picture she is having 4 funnels. When reciprocating were destined to be the power plant. A great model of the ships appeared in Ship Builders magazine in this configuration. Cunard decided to change power plants to Parsons' new turbine technology, and the ship's design was again modified when Pesquet added a 4th funnel, as you can see there in the background at the back. At the back there you can see it. Construction of the vessel finally began with the laying of the keel in August 1904. By tradition, the hull was painted in a light grey color for photographic purposes during her launch, a common practice of the day for the first ship in a new class, as it made the lines of the ship clearer in the black and white photographs. Her hull was painted black after her maiden voyage. Well, let's go to after that. It came to the most incredible part of a ship's life. It came to the launching of this beautiful ship. There was in 1906, Mauretania was launched. It was launched by the Duchess of Roxburgh. It was launched by Duchess of Roxburgh at the time, and at the time of her launch, she was the largest moving structure ever built. See, you're supposed to change. Sorry, we're experiencing some technical difficulties. We're experiencing some minor technical difficulties. We're trying to resolve them as quickly as we can, but please bear with us. I know technology can become an issue sometimes when we're doing these videos. They tend to cause big issues. So as you can see now in the photos here, this photo on the left side, you can see Mauretania being launched. As you can see, ships in the background pulling this massive structure. Almost incredible I can even picture myself in there at the spectators watching point. Well, she was a slightly larger in gross tonnage than the Lusitania. The main visual difference between Mauretania and Lusitania was that the Mauretania was 5 feet longer and had different vents. Mauretania also had 2 extra stages of turbine blades in her forward turbines, making her slightly faster than Lusitania. Mauretania and Lusitania were the only ships with direct drive steam turbines to hold the blue ribbon. In later ships, reduction geared turbines were mainly used. Mauretania's usage of the steam turbine was the largest application yet of then new technology developed by Charles Anglonon Parsons. During speed trials, these engines caused significant vibration at high speeds. In response, Mauretania received strengthening members aft and redesigned propellers before entering service, which reduced vibration. Mauretania was designed to suit Edwardine tastes. The ship's interior was designed by architect Harold Peto, and her public rooms were fitted by 2 notable London design houses, C.H. Miller and Sons and Turner and Lord, with 28 different types of foods, along with marble taperies and other furnishings such as the stunning octagon table. As you can see in that picture there on the right side, you can see that beautiful place, the first class public room. That's the dining room, and the wood paneling for the first class public rooms was supposedly carved by 300 craftsmen from Palestine, but this seems unlikely, unnecessary, and was probably executed by the yard or subcontracted, as were the majority of the second and third class areas. The multi-level first-class dining saloon of straw oak was decorated in Francis I style and topped by a large dome skylight that you can see there in that dome up there. You can see it very well, and a series of elevators. Then a rare feature for liners with grilles composed of the relative new lightweight aluminium were installed next to Mauretania's walnut grand staircase. And a new feature was the veranda cafe on the boat deck, where passengers were served beverages in a weather-protected environment, although this was enclosed within a year as it proved unrealistic. We now move on to a new part. We move on towards the comparison with the Olympic class, and let us now look well and try to picture ourselves in this between Olympic class, which we all know includes Titanic, Britannic, and Olympic, and also we compare it with Cunard's type of lines, Aquitania, Lusitania, and the Mauretania. So let's go to the comparison with the Olympic class. As you can see in these pictures, I will display in just a minute. Here you can see on the left side, you can see the Mauretania. But there is also a difference. The White Star Line's Olympic class were almost 100 feet or 30 meters longer and slightly wider than Lusitania and Mauretania. This made the White Star vessels about 15,000 gross registered tons larger than the Cunard vessels. Both Lusitania and Mauretania were launched and had been in service for several years before Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic were ready for the North Atlantic run. Although significantly faster than the Olympic class would be, the speed and port turnaround times of Cunard's vessels was not sufficient to allow the line to run a weekly two-ship transatlantic service from each side of the Atlantic. So, what did they do? A third ship was needed for weekly service, and in response to White Star Line's announced plan to build the 3 Olympic-class ships, Cunard announced and ordered a third ship, the Aquitania. Like Olympic, Cunard's Aquitania had a lower speed but was a larger and more luxurious ship. With the increased size, the Olympic-class liners could offer many more amenities than Lusitania and Mauretania. Both Olympic and Titanic offered swimming pools, Turkish baths, gymnasium, squash court, large reception rooms, a la carte restaurant separated from the dining saloons, and many more staterooms with private bathroom facilities than their 2 Cunard rivals. Heavy vibration was a byproduct of the 4 steam turbines of Lusitania and Mauretania. As you can see in this picture on the left side, you can see how Mauretania glides across the water at immense speed. Even you can wonder, how comes this ship is going in a hurry? Well, also in this picture you can see the Mauretania galloping at a tremendous speed. So, heavy vibrations being the byproduct on Lusitania and Mauretania plagued both ships throughout their career. When Lusitania sailed at top speed, the vibrations were so severe that second and third class sections of the ship could become uninhabitable. In contrast, the Olympic-class liners chose economy over speed by installing 2 traditional reciprocating engines and a turbine for the central propeller. With their greater tonnage and wider beam, the Olympic-class liners were also more stable at sea and less prone to rolling. Lusitania and Mauretania both featured straight prows in contrast to the angled prows of the Olympic liners, designed so that the ships could plunge through a wave rather than crest it. The unforeseen consequence was that the Cunard liners would pitch forward alarmingly even in calm weather, allowing huge waves to splash the bow and forward part of the superstructure. This came evident in 1910 when Lusitania was steaming through a nor'easter which was plaguing the US and had become even worse at sea when she encountered a rogue wave that smashed along the bow of the ship, damaging the bridge and other sections. Also, the vessels of the Olympic class also differed from Lusitania and Mauretania in the way in which they were compartmented below the waterline. The White Star vessels were divided by transverse watertight bulkheads, while Lusitania also had transverse watertight bulkheads. She also had longitudinal running along the ship on each side between the boiler and engine room and the coal bunkers on the outside of the vessel. But later in 1912, we all know, the RMS Titanic, steaming on her first maiden voyage, was struck an iceberg. And so after the sinking, the British Commission had investigated the sinking, had the testimony of the flooding of coal bunkers lying outside longitudinal bulkheads. Being of considerable length when flooded, this would increase the ship list and make the lowering of the boats on the other side impracticable. and this was later happened with Lusitania. Furthermore, the stability of the ship was insufficient for the bulkhead arrangement used, because flooding of only 3 coal bunkers on each side could result in negative metacentric height. On the other hand, Titanic was given ample stability and sank with only a few degrees least, the design being such that there was very little risk of unequal flooding and possible capsize. Next, did not carry enough lifeboats. Lusitania did not carry enough lifeboats for all her passengers, officers, and crew on board, carrying 4 lifeboats fewer than Titanic would carry in 1912, which is 16 lifeboats. This was a common practice for large passenger ships at the time, since the belief was that in busy shipping lanes, help would always be near and the few boats available would be adequate to ferry all aboard to rescue ships before they are sinking. After Titanic sank, Lusitania and Mauretania would be equipped with only 6 more Klinger-built wooden boats under davits, making a total of 22 boats rigged in davits. The rest of their lifeboat accommodations were supplemented with 26 collapsible lifeboats, 18 stored directly beneath the regular lifeboats and right on the afterdeck. The collapsibles were built using hollow wooden bottoms and canvas sides, and needed assembly in the event they had to be used. We now move on to the third part. The third part. We have removed ourselves from the design, from the comparison. We move to the exciting part. This really touches my heart. We move on to the early career of this beautiful ship, the Mauretania. When Mauretania departed Liverpool on her maiden voyage on 16th November 1907 under the command of Captain John Pritchard, and on the return voyage 30th November to 5th December 1907, captured the record of the fastest eastbound crossing of the Atlantic with an average speed of 23.69 knots, also 43.87 kilometers per hour, or 27.26 miles per hour. On Mauretania's second eastbound, on Mauretania's second time, Mauretania was again at New York City and moored in the North River when a squall with high winds struck, causing moor posts on Pier 54 to give way. This meant Mauretania would partly go adrift, and her bow swung around and struck several barges which were bringing her coal and taking off ashes. The barges Rowan and Tomiken and the boats Eureka 32 and Eureka 36 were damaged, and the barge Ellis P. Rogers was lost. In subsequent litigation, Cunard was found liable for damages. In September 1909, Mauretania captured the Blue Ribband for the fastest westbound crossing, a record that was to stand for more than 2 decades. In December 1911 at New York City, the Mauretania broke loose was in New York City in December 1910. Mauretania broke loose from her moorings in the River Mersey and sustained damage that caused her special speedy Christmas voyage to New York to be cancelled. In a quick change of events, Cunard reschedules Mauretania's voyage for Lusitania, which had just returned from New York under the command of Captain James Charles. Lusitania completed Christmas crossings for Mauretania, carrying travelers back to New York. Mauretania was on a westbound voyage from Liverpool to New York, being 10th April 1912, and was docked at Queenstown at the time of the RMS Titanic disaster. Mauretania was transporting to Titanic's cargo manifest carried by registered mail. Traveling on Mauretania at the time was the chairman of Cunard, A. Booth, who organized a vigil for the Titanic's victims. In the spring of 1913, westbound transatlantic passage aboard Mauretania cost roughly $17 for third-class passengers, and the ticket would read like this. For example, it would read as like this. In the above payment, third class in the vessels and third class wagons on the railroads. Forwarding of luggage fees for third class passengers, 10 cubic feet on board the vessels, 65 kilos on the railroads. The company does not undertake any guarantee against loss, damage, or unavoidable detention of travelers' luggage. It would really be a pity if these things, you can view the ticket on Wikipedia on the RMS Mauretania. But let us go in further. In July 1913, King George and Queen Mary were given a special tour on Mauretania, then Britain's fastest merchant vessel, adding further distinction to the ship's reputation. On 26 January 1914, while Mauretania was in the middle of annual refit in Liverpool, 4 men were killed and 6 injured when a gas cylinder exploded while they were working on one of her steam turbines. Damage to the ship was minimal. She was repaired in the new Gladstone dry dock and returned to service 2 months later. We come to the darkest and dangerous time of this beautiful ship. First World War. After Great Britain declared war on Germany on 4th August 1914, Mauretania made a dash for safety in Halifax, Nova Scotia, arriving on 6th August. Shortly after, she and Aquitania were requested by the British government to become armed merchant cruiser, but their huge size and massive fuel consumption made them unsuitable for the duty, and they resumed their civilian service on 11th August. Later, due to lack of passengers crossing the Atlantic, Mauretania was laid up in Liverpool until on 7th May, a sister ship, the Lusitania, was struck by a German U-boat, the U-20. Mauretania was about to fill the void left by Lusitania, but she was ordered by the British government to serve as a troop ship to carry British soldiers during the Gallipoli campaign. She avoided becoming prey for German U-boats because of the high speed and seamanship of the crew. As a troop ship, she was painted in dark grays with black funnels, as were her contemporaries. And we can see that in this picture. This picture, yes. You can see that she has been painted in dark grays with black funnels. I'm not sure if that's dark or a bit of gray also. Whoever knows, you can comment down on after this video. When combined forces from the British Empire and France began to suffer heavy casualties, Mauretania was ordered to serve as a troop ship along with the Aquitania and White Stars Britannic to treat the wounded until 25th January 1916. In medical service, the vessel was painted white with buff funnels and large medical cross emblems surrounding the vessel and possibly illuminated signs starboard and port. 7 months later, but at the time of being a hospital ship, she was named the HMHS Mauretania, which means His Majesty's Honorable Ship, the Mauretania, along with also Britannic being named His Majesty's Hospital Ship Mauretania. 7 months later, Mauretania was returned to this same color, once again becoming a troop ship late in 1916 when requisitioned by the Canadian government to carry Canadian troops from Halifax to Liverpool. Her war duty was not yet over when the United States declared war on Germany in 1917, and she carried thousands of American troops. The ship was known by the Admiralty as HMS Tuberose until the end of the war, but the vessel's name was never changed by Cunard. Starting in March 1918, Mauretania received 2 forms of dorsal camouflage, a type of abstract color scheme designed by Norman Wilkinson in 1917 in an effort to confuse enemy ships. The first camouflage scheme applied early in 1918 was curvilinear in nature and largely broad areas of olives with black. I think this is the one you can see here. That's the, I think. And also the second scheme was the more geometric design commonly referred to as dazzle. This design, applied by July 1918, was mostly several dark blues and grey with some black. After her war service, she was repainted in a drab grey scheme and finally full Cunard livery in the middle of 1919. After that, she entered back to a civilian service. Let's move to the next part, her post-war career. Excuse me. So we try to load her back. Yeah, no, not that. Yes, this one. Yes, she was returned to civilian service on 21st September 1919. Her busy sail schedule, from having an extensive overhaul scheduled in 1920. However, in 1921, Cunard removed her from service when fire broke out on Edict and decided to overhaul the ship. She returned to Tyne shipyard where she was built, where her boilers were converted to oil firing, and returned to service in March 1922. Cunard noticed that Mauretania struggled to maintain her regular Atlantic service speed. Although the ship's service speed had improved and it now burned only 750 short tons of oil per 24 hours compared to 1,000 short tons of coal previously, it was not operating at her pre-war service speeds. On one crossing in 1922, the ship managed an average speed of only 19 knots, which is 35 kilometers per hour or 22 miles per hour. It was during these years her promenade was enclosed. Cunard decided that the ship, once revolutionary turbines, were in desperate need of an overhaul. In 1923, a major refitting was begun in Southampton. Mauretania's turbines were dismantled. Halfway through the whole overhaul, the shipyard workers went on strike and the work was halted. So Cunard had the ship towed to Cherbourg, France, where the work was completed at another shipyard. In May 1924, the ship returned to Atlantic service. In 1928, Mauretania was refurbished with a new interior design, and in the next year, her speed record was broken by a German liner, Bremen, with a speed of 28 knots, which is 52 kilometers per hour or 32 miles per hour. On 27th August, Cunard permitted the former Ocean Greyhound to have one final attempt to recapture the record from the newer German line. She was taken out of service and her engines were adjusted to produce more power to give her a higher service speed. However, this was still not enough. Bremen represented a new generation of ocean liners that were far more powerful and technologically advanced than the aging Cunard liner. Even though Mauretania did not beat her German rival, the ship lost by just a fraction after decades of design improvement and beat all her own previous records both east and westbound. In 1929, Mauretania tragically collided with a train ferry near Robbins Reef Flight. No one was killed and injured, and her damage was quickly repaired. In 1930, with a combination of the Great Depression and newer competitors on the Atlantic Line, Mauretania became a dedicated cruise ship, running 6-day cruises from New York to Pier 21 in Nova Scotia. On 19th November 1930, Mauretania rescued 28 people and the ship's skirt of the Swedish cargo ship Ovidia, which foundered in the Atlantic Ocean 400 nautical miles or 740 kilometers or 460 miles southeast of Cape Race, Newfoundland. In 1932, she was painted white for cruise service. When Cunard merged with White Star Line in 1934, Mauretania, along with Olympic, Homeric, and other aging ocean liners, were deemed surplus to requirements and sadly requirements and withdrawn from service. So far we've gone through this ship for quite some time. There you can see on the right side of there you can see the picture of the RMS Mauretania in 1933. So we move on to the last years of this ship, her retirement and scrapping. Cunard White Star withdrew Mauretania from service following a final eastward crossing from New York to Southampton in September 1934. The voyage was made at an average speed of 24 knots or 44 kilometers per hour or 28 miles per hour, equaling the original contractual stipulation for her mail subsidy. She was then laid up at Southampton, her 28 years of service at a close. In May 1935, her furnishings and fittings were put up for auction by Hampton and Sons. On 1st July that year, she departed Southampton for the last time to her metal industry shipwrecker at Rosyth. As let me show you in that picture, she was departing for the final time. Just bear with me for this last time as we look at it end for this beautiful ship. the Mauretania. Let me see if I can find it. I think it's here up. I think I saw something here. Let me see. Yes, there. You can see here on the right side, Mauretania departing Southampton for a final voyage to Rosyth. One of her former captains, the retired Commodore Sir Arthur Rostron, which many of you are familiar, the captain of the RMS Mauretania during the Titanic rescue, came to see her on her final departure from Southampton. Roston refused to go aboard Mauretania before a final journey, stating that he preferred to remember the ship as she was when he commanded her. En route to Rosyth, Mauretania stopped at her birthplace on the Tyne for half an hour, where she drew crowds of sightseers. Rockets were fired from her bridge, messages relayed, and she was boarded by the Lord Mayor of Newcastle. The mayor bade her farewell from the people of Newcastle, and her last captain, A.T. Brown, then resumed his course for Rosyth, approximately 30 miles off Newcastle, in the small seaport of Ambo, Northumberland. The local town council sent a telegram to the ship stating, "Still the finest ships of the seas," to which Mauretania replied, "To the last and kindliest port in England, greetings and thanks." Ambo to this day is still known as Ambo, the friendliest port, and this is still seen on signs when entering the town. With masts cut down to feet, the ship passed under the Forth Bridge and was delivered to her breakers. Mauretania arrived at Rosyth in Scotland about 6 a.m. on 4th July 1935 during her half-gale, passing under Forth Bridge. By 6:30 a.m., she passed the entrance to the Metal Industries Yard under the command of pilot Captain Witz. A lone kilted piper was presented at the quayside, playing a funeral lament for the popular vessel. It was reported to Arthur and historian John Maxton Graham that upon her final shutdown of her great engines, she gave a dark final shudder. Mauretania had her last public inspection on 8th July, a Sunday, with 20,000 in attendance, with the monies raised to go in local charities. Scrapping began shortly after and with great rapidity. Unusually, she was cut up afloat in dry dock with a complex system of wooden buttons and pencil markers to monitor her balance. In a month, her funnels were gone. By 1936, she was little more than a hulk, and she was beached at the tidal basin at Metal Industries, and the remaining structure was scrapped by 1937. To prevent a rival company from using their name and to keep it available for the future, Cunard White Star liner, arrangements were made for the Red Funnel paddle steamer Queen to be renamed Mauretania in the interim before the launch of the new RMS Mauretania II in 1938. The demise of the beloved Mauretania was protested by her loyal passengers, including President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who wrote a public letter against her scrapping. we now move to the final part of this research, the post-scrapping. The ship's bell is in the reception of the Lloyd's Register, Fench Church Street, London. Annually for the Remembrance Day, Lloyd's Register observed 2 minutes of silence and lay a wreath as its base in honor of servicemen. Some of the furnishings from Mauretania were installed in a bar or restaurant complex in Bristol called the Mauretania Bar, now Java, Bristol, situated in Park Street. The bar was panelled with a great quantity of rich carved and gilt old-grown African mahogany, which came from a first-class lounge. The neon sign made for the 1937 opening on the south wall still advertises Mauretania, and herbal lettering was used above the entrance. Additionally, nearly the complete first-class writing room with the original chandeliers and ornated grilled bookcases has been serving as a boardroom at Pinewood Studios west of London. The color is no longer shimmering silver sycamore. It has been altered over the years to an amber. According to Channel 4 program about coast properties, the whole of the second-class drawing room from the ship formed the interior of a white and blue house overlooking Poole Harbour. The drawing room is overlooked by balustrated circular veranda, which is also original. Other panels and fitting were used to decorate the foyer and auditorium areas of the now defunct Windsor Cinema in Scarlack. Some of the timber paneling was also used in the extension of St. John the Baptist Catholic Church in Paddingham, Lancashire. In 2010, as African mahogany pilaster from the first-class lounge fluted with an intricate gilt motif and intact ram's ahead capital was discovered and restored. Since 2012, it has been on permanent display in the Discovery Museum, Segedom Annex at Wolstead, just a few hundred yards from where it was carved and installed in the Swan Hunter fitting out basing over a century earlier. Many examples of the liner's fixtures and fittings exist in private collections as well, including large sections of molding, paneling, ceilings, and samples of a turbine blades. An original model of Mauretania is displayed at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. after a long stay of the retired Queen Mary in Long Beach, California. Originally with a black hull, it was repainted to show her white cruising paint scheme in the 1930s after it was gifted to the RMS Queen Mary by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Another scale model of Mauretania is displayed at the Discovery Museum in Newcastle upon Tyne. It is still in its original color scheme. A large builder's model showing Mauretania in a white cruising paint scheme is displayed in the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic Cunard exhibit in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Originally a model of Lusitania, it was converted to represent Mauretania after Lusitania was torpedoed. Another large builder's model is situated aboard the ocean liner Queen Elizabeth II, currently located in Dubai. This model was also originally Lusitania, and like the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic's model, it was converted into Mauretania after Lusitania was lost. When inspecting the model, one can tell it was Lusitania by examining different boom crutches and bridge fronts, which is on the boat deck level. a model of the vessel which was commissioned by Cunard, is now held in the collection of the National Maritime Museum in Greenwich. So, we've looked at many things, including we've looked at many things about this nice ship, the Queen Mary, the RMS Mauretania. Why am I taking myself ahead? So we shall move on to this research. But to let you know, please like and subscribe. The support, those six subscribers, they are really helping a lot. Maybe if you are a viewer right watching this video, you can like and subscribe to help generate support, and I'm sure I will send more research. That is a promise, and you have my word. Anyways, thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed this research, and also I would like to thank my members Lloyd, Mark, Manasseh, and Abbas. Thank you so much, and also thank you to my viewers, my members, my subscribers. Thank you so much. I guess we'll see you on the next one. It will be a preview of the RMS Aquitania. In fact, I'll launch a trailer of what we will look at just after this video. Anyways, thanks for watching. Bye.